Hello everyone, my name is Vedran and I'm the co-founder of Treblle, and I'll be your host in this in-depth product demo of Treblle. So I'll try to keep the introduction as short as I can because I want to focus on some of the product features in this video, and I want to show you from start to finish what you get by using Treblle. So just a brief introduction of myself. I'm like I said, the co-founder of Treblle. Together with my other co-founder, we've been running a development and design company in Croatia where we've worked probably around 100 projects, and a lot of them involved APIs, where basically I was the main API developer, and I was in charge in kind of running the API, writing documentation, providing support on all of these things. So if you work on a lot of projects, especially if you work on in teams with people in different time zones, in different continents, you kind of spread your day through with tasks like, can you jump on a Skype call and try to solve this, what we think is an API issue, but we're not sure. So that's where kind of the idea of Treblle got started, and I wanted to kind of offset some of that time that I spent providing support, writing documentation, updating documentation, talking to clients, talking to other developers. I just wanted to kind of offset that and see if I can make a system that could help me. And hence, we kind of built Treblle. And what we like to say is that Treblle makes it super easy to understand what's going on with your APIs and the apps that use them. And just like in a couple of features that we enable just out of the box is real-time API monitoring, error tracking, auto-generated documentation, and of course much more. And we are going to take a look at a lot of these features by going through a real API project with a real application that we're actually building. Okay, so this is going to be like a live demo. Please, if I make any mistakes, forgive me in advance. I'm gonna try to keep it collected, So the first thing that we want to do is, let's try to create a new project. And I logged into my Treblle account. You can see all of my projects, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new project, and this project is going to be called Treblle Snap, because that's the app that we are actually building for one of our clients. So this is a real app, a real API in development, and it's being used by other people, but we're kind of gonna steal it for the purposes of this demo. So we're gonna say that this is Treblle Snap product tour, right? And we're gonna type in the API URL. In this case, that's where we kind of host the API, and we can invite our team members. So one of our team members is actually Tia, right? And another one can be, Darko. So the one of them is our iOS developer, one of them is my co-founder. So if I just kind of create this project and I have it set up, I get a bunch of instructions and I'm ready to get started with Treblle. Getting started is actually fairly easy, and I think it could be done in like 10 seconds. For now, we have packages for PHP, Laravel, and Node, but we have packages and SDKs for .NET, Ruby, and Python in development. So those are coming soon, and you'll be able to use Treblle with those languages as well. Like I said, for now, it's just PHP, Laravel, and Node. And the only reason why we have those three is because I personally can, develop in all of them. So it was relatively cheap and, not time consuming, if you will. So what we need to kind of do is we just need to install the package, and we can do that just by running this command on our FTP server. So if I go into the server and I run this command, you'll see that Treblle will be installed. In this case, it was already installed. This is just a response from Laravel and Composer, which says, we discovered Treblle and it's working right here. Next up, we need to kind of copy these two keys right here. So if I wanted to copy them, I would have to place them in the default Laravel config file, which is called .env. That's just a thing that Laravel uses, the .env notation, and here we go. I can copy and paste these two keys right here, right? Like so. I can actually save this, so let's give it a moment. And since we're running everything in Laravel, we would need to clear the cache. So this is just a Laravel thing. If you update the configuration file, you can recache it, so it's much faster to work with. So now that we've got that done, all we need to kind of do is add Treblle to our API middleware. Now to do that, we just add it as a middleware group. So if I go and open the project right here, this is, as you can see, the routes file for the Treblle API, and inside we've got API PHP, which is the default routes file for everything APIs in Laravel. And as you can see, we've got a bunch of endpoints, and all we need to kind of do is we're gonna add Treblle right here, just like I did. So you've got some auth on this, you've got a JSON middleware and Treblle, and that's it. Basically everything that is in this middleware group will be monitored and tracked by Treblle. So as you can see, we can get started very easy. Now let's actually see how the magic happens. So what I'm gonna kind of do here is I'm gonna move my browser a bit like here, so you can see my phone. I have my real iPhone, of course, hopefully on Do Not Disturb, and I've got the app installed right here. So we're gonna actually start using Treblle in this demo real time from the app directly. Again, it's kind of not the way that you would usually do it, because you would probably start developing the API, and here we have the API already developed. But it's also something that, if you have a project going already, you could definitely just add Treblle and you're done. That's it. Next time you open the app or the web app or the mobile app, Treblle will figure everything out. So that's what we're kind of counting right here. So here, the Treblle app actually is very complicated. I don't want to go into it, but it's an app about real estate. So I can create an account. As you can see, I can log in, I can view real estate listings and stuff like that. So I'm actually going to use a demo account that I created, which is called Jane at flip.hr. By the way, flip.hr is our development and design studio, and I'm going to do Jane password, right? So I've actually entered the password. You cannot see it because I'm streaming my iPhone, and Apple kind of is smart about that, just like Treblle is smart about these things, and you'll see that in a moment. So if I actually click sign in on my iPhone, you will see in a matter of few seconds on the left side that the app has actually made two API calls. One is to auth login, and the other one is to users, and then this huge UID / dashboard. So again, this is in real time happening as I'm actually using the app, right? So you'll see this go on and on. As I click on something inside the app, you might see something happen in Treblle, which is kind of the whole point of Treblle. This is the reason why we built it. And one of the nice things about it is that it works so fast. And because I'm actually recording this, there's a slight delay, so it works even faster than it's on this recording. And it has almost no impact on the host's API. So again, let's see what kind of Treblle captured. Let's try to understand what these things are. And as you can see, the timestamp updated in real time. It's just one of those nice things. So one of the first API requests is, as you can see, a post request. we have this little icon right here that says request authenticated. So Treblle is actually very smart and knows that this request has authentication attached to it, and we'll be able to see those details later on. It also provides us with a status code, and this is something that we actually compute ourselves and is unique to Treblle. It was able to detect that you, actually me, uh, I am using the iOS app and the iOS device to kind of open this API request, and that's how it knows that. And also, since of course I am in Zagreb, Croatia, and we can, quickly confirm that, just so we're, this is Zagreb, that is me, just sitting in our office, and it kind of shows you the location and of course the load time. In this case, it was 90 milliseconds, which is not bad but not great also. But we do a lot of things when you log in, so that kind of might be okay. And you can see similar things here, but this is actually a GET request, right? So you'll see this URL, and if I was to log in with another user account, you would probably see here in the middle a different UID. And now if we take a look at one of these API requests, you can see that you can see basically the full request and response details of absolutely every single API call. And this is one of the fundamental and core things that we wanted to do at Treblle, and we believe this is one of the things that kind of will help teams the most. And the reason why is because in most cases, when you're working with other developers, like maybe app developers or website developers who are using your API, if something goes wrong, or even if they do something wrong on the device, let's say that they try to implement this API, and they're saying that something isn't working, but they don't know what it is, and they're pretty sure it's not them. So oftentimes, they would ask me, can you jump on a phone call and see what I'm sending you? And oftentimes they might be getting an error, or they might not be even making a request, or the request might be invalid, and they wouldn't kind of know that because they don't see it, right? APIs are like this background unseen thing that kind of runs between the database and the system and the app, right? So if you don't understand how it works, if you've never kind of done that thing, if you don't have experience, it can be very confusing to know whether or not you've done something. And thinking back at it, I couldn't imagine my life without an API without Treblle. Uh, because it's simply, even with this, just seeing what everybody is doing makes my life easier. Just seeing that this was sent and this was returned is probably, you know one of the most helpful things Treblle does, and it's super super simple. So let's kind of dissect what Treblle was able to figure out. And I'm sorry, I keep moving some of these things just so you know something is going on. So as you can see, Treblle detected that the request data had these two parameters, email and password. That's just pretty standard when you log in. And of course, email was what I typed in, but password, now this is a unique feature that Treblle does, where it kind of detects any sensitive data on your API, and it kind of encrypts it before it even gets sent to Treblle. So we don't have we simply never can know what this password is, nor can we hash it. It just gets into our system like this, and it's 100% secure. And the most important thing, you as a developer, of course, control which APIs Treblle monitors, and more importantly, which keys do you want to protect. So let's say if you wanted to protect the email field, you can definitely add that to the list in the configuration file for the package, and it will be done. Now again, like I said, the app kind of is very simple, at least in terms of the user model. So it returned this response. It's basically a user model. and it has a bunch of related data, for example, like Jane Doe, right? The progress that Jane Doe made, for example, what the date of birth is, and some other stuff. And of course, we have a bit of information like short excerpts from other sections. So, for example, we can see the exact date and timestamp when this was requested, and we actually keep track of the time that the request was made before it gets sent. So, it's not after we're done processing, it's actually the time that this actually took place. We of course keep track of the response code. If this is 200, which indicates that everything went okay, but in case it didn't, we would kind of show a different color and everything else, and you would be able to understand that, which we'll definitely take a look at later. Another thing is that we show you the request format, and we're kind of smart about the fact that is this request authenticated? We just tell you yes or no. Did it have problems? Very easy. No. Is it using an API version? And as you can see, it is, because Treblle was able to detect the version from the URL, so it knows that this is version 1 of your API. Again, we have the device, the load time in milliseconds, and the response size. Now, these are very important nowadays when you've got a lot of developers who don't necessarily know how to do good APIs and kind of, develop poorly, especially I don't mean to stab anybody, but with some of these new frameworks where they kind of just load in packages and dependencies, and it just takes them like half a second to load the API. So we do a lot of measuring here to try to help the developer understand what is going on. And of course, you can see the full details of the request, including the map. We don't pinpoint the location, of course, we just give you a general overview. We also give you the full device details. Now, this is where things get very interesting as far as debugging goes, and as far as what data Treblle gets and what it's able to understand. So you have to know that Treblle doesn't have access to it doesn't have access to this device. It also doesn't have access to the OS level. So Treblle only sits on the API, which is on the server. So we're actually able to compute this information directly from the API. So we know, for example, that I'm running iOS 14.4, as you can see. We know that the version of the app is 0.022, and as you can see, I've got the latest version right here installed, and you can see it matches. And we also know the bundle ID and the client that made this request, right? So we know a lot of valuable information that can help you debug what you're trying to do, and maybe find all requests that are, for example, running version 0.010, which is maybe outdated, and so you'll be able to filter and find any of these requests to kind of try to help you figure what's going on. And finally, of course, this is maybe less relevant to other team members and maybe more relevant to an API developer or a server architecture or DevOps. We kind of record what the time zone is, what OS you're running, what software, and more importantly, what protocol is. What protocol are you using? In this case, it's HTTP 2.0. Finally, we can go back to our request and response. As you saw, you get the full URL, but you also get the authentication details. Now, this was actually extracted from the request itself, right? So we didn't tell Treblle anywhere, okay, you're using a bearer token, it's located in the headers, and this is the key. Treblle was kind of smart enough to detect this in your request, was able to extract the key, knows that this was a successfully used key, and it kind of highlights it here. And of course, you can see a documentation view of every request. So you can see that in this case, it's very similar, right? So these two things are very similar, but in this case, it's just email and password. If we, however, take a look at how it looks for the user model, you can see that you get the model, but instead of real values here, you get what type of data it is, right? So most of these things are strings, some are integers, but some are booleans. And Treblle can detect that and automatically generate documentation for this. And you will see this in action when we take a look at another call where it's more crazier and more complex, how Treblle deals with it very easily. Now, another thing that we can actually do is we can share this request. So if we wanted to share only this request and send it to a third party for whatever reason, for example, for debugging, or if I wanted to send it to my client or somebody who doesn't have access to the project, I can easily do that. I'll just open a private window like so. I'll share this URL and it will open up this page that only has that request. As you can see, I can't open anything else. I can't click on any of the project details or anything. I can only see this request, just like you would share a tweet or a Facebook post. And the reason why kind of we did this is because early on our clients told us that oftentimes when, for example, they're working with a bunch of third-party developers, they don't want them to have access to Treblle, but they sometimes want to share an individual request and show them what they're doing wrong. So this is actually something that the community told us that we should have. And another probably very important feature of Treblle is being able to one-click test this request. And I'll show you that later on, just so we can move past some of the more complex stuff. And of course, finally, if I wanted to, I can make a comment here. So I can say, hello there, and I can comment on this request. Of course, this now may seem pointless, but if you're working in a team, you can definitely mention other people. So if I open up any of my other projects, let's say this one, and if I wanted to comment on this request, I could probably start typing like so, and I'll get a bunch of suggestions from other team members, right? And I can mention somebody and I can bring him bring attention to this API call. So for example, most often if the documentation gets updated, I would mention an iOS developer or an Android developer, and I will tell them, hey, take a look at this request, I've updated the documentation or something like that. And of course, now that we've made a comment, you can see that this request has one comment on it, hence it's displayed right here. And of course, you can do a bunch of actions on this basically request. You could find more like this, which is going to find you all the requests that are from this user, essentially from this IP address. You can again run it again. You can add it to a collection. We'll get to that, and you can mute it, which we'll again explore later on. But I've been talking for a solid 15 minutes. I want to try to move past this. So as you can see, for now, our API score, which please bear in mind was calculated in real time automatically, is 100%, and we only have 2 endpoints and 2 requests, which is what we kind of did. Now, if we open up this request that actually builds out this entire dashboard dynamically, you can see that it is very, very complicated. And as you can see, it has like the actions array, and then inside it kind of has, for example, many of these items. So each of these boxes is actually represented by this JSON. So as you can see, it says title, search for a property, 3 matches to your search criteria, counter, 3 icon. So all this entire screen is actually built from this API, right? Everything you see on the screen is dynamically built. So this is like an ideal scenario for errors, right? and when I say errors, I don't mean code-based errors, but for example, oftentimes this count was wrong. My client would tell me, hey, for some reason, the count is off. It's not showing what it's supposed to show, and then I would go in and I would see what he got back, and I would be able to figure it out. But the reason why I kind of opened this API request is see how many lines this is. It's of course a JSON. It builds all of these things out. But if I click on the documentation view, you can see that this is actually just one item in the array, because again, Treblle generates documentation automatically. It knows that all of those items inside of the array are the same, and it generates unique usable documentation that you as an API developer, as an app developer, as somebody who is integrating this, can know and understand that this is what you will have as an array item, if you will. And this is essentially generated in real time on each API request. If we go, for example, into the documentation section, which is kind of just an overview of all the requests and the endpoints, we can see that by default we get a bunch of interesting and useful things. So, for example, Treblle knows that this is a JSON-based API. It has total of 2 endpoints, and the average response size is 45 milliseconds, and this is the response size as well. It was able to measure a quality score. It kind of gives these two things are probably the most important things for anybody who's using this API, which is the base URL, right, and the authentication, right? So it's able to detect that, and now it just lists off all your endpoints and their documentation. So if we were to make another request, let's just say, for argument's sake, I click on search for a property, right? And we can see that in this case, in real time, you see this request. And again, this is going to be a huge JSON, because it's actually returning all the information that you get when you click on this link, right? When you click on this property. So it's going to have a lot of information right here. And if you go to the documentation view, again, it's able to, like a champ, parse out probably around a couple of hundreds lines of code into this nice documentation view for anybody to kind of integrate and authenticate. Now, if we go into the documentation view, you can see that it has already been updated, and it already includes the documentation for this page, right? Now, if I make another action, let's say that I say schedule a viewing for this property, and you'll see again in real time, it kind of does that, and it makes a bunch of other API requests, as you can see. If we go to the documentation view, you will now see that what Treblle is doing is actually very smart. So it was able to group previously ungrouped API requests, which was properties/UUID and properties/UUID/viewing, into the same group. This is what we would call, an endpoint group. Everything that you do under properties is a group, and Treblle was able to detect that these two things are related, and it was able to group them together. More importantly, please note that we make these URLs with the UUID behind properties, yet right here it says properties/UUID. You can see Treblle transformed this URL into a UUID because it knows that this parameter is dynamic and it can change, and it has changed on a couple of requests. So for example, this one and this one, and if I opened up another one, you'll see basically, let me unlock my phone. If you do this one, for example, if you schedule a viewing for it like so, you'll see another request with a different endpoint, right? So these are all different, right? Now, what's great about it is, again, Treblle was able to detect that and is smart enough to to place all requests that have this quote unquote endpoint under the same endpoint. So even though all of these requests have different endings, or if you will, they are all placed under one endpoint, and that's how kind of we're able to generate documentation based on endpoints versus just trying to guess some things. And of course, it makes it much more easier and to kind of provide documentation, provide support, debugging, and everything. It just makes it a lot easier if you don't have to tell Treblle to detect this, and it can be done automatically, of course. Now, as you can see, these are all the endpoints that were detected right here. I can, for example, mute them, or I can delete them, right? So if I mute an endpoint, you won't see any of the requests appear on the dashboard. So if we decided to mute this, we would essentially hide it from the dashboard, right? If we wanted to add it to a collection, we can create a new collection, say, let's do problematic requests, right? And let's say I found some problems with these requests, and let's say I added to a collection. Let's say I think this one is problematic as well. I can add it to this collection as well. And let's just do another one for argument's sake. Let's do this one. Let's add it to the same collection. If I now go to my collections, for example, right here, and if I go to my collections and if I just share this collection with anybody, you will see those three requests as they were made. So for example, if I wanted to share a set of requests with somebody, either to help them debug, or tell them, hey, something has changed, or just try to figure out something that I'm interested in, or even, for example, tell them, hey, this user registered, this is how they did it, this is the path. I can do that by creating a collection and sharing it with anybody who I want to. Now again, if I return to our project, as you can see, our quality score has dropped now because we'll get into that, but it was 100, now it's 90. And of course, you can now see that our endpoints are at 5 and our requests are at 15, which is exactly how many we've made. Now, we've seen endpoints, which is just a nice way of grouping similar requests, and essentially what every API developer would do. You can of course filter and find any of these endpoints. You can say, give me all the endpoints from the properties group or the users group, give me all the endpoints that are from the get method, or are they muted, and sort them by this or that way. And of course you can filter all your requests from the dashboard as well. So if I wanted to find only requests to properties UUID viewing from iOS that have a response code of, let's say, 200, which was the one that we had, I can easily do that, right? But if I turned in, for example, Android, it doesn't find any because there aren't any, right? Another thing that we could do is, for example, let's say that, I don't know, we wanted to search for this user UUID. All we would have to do is enter the search parameters, and it will find all the requests that contain this user UUID. This is very powerful for filtering, of course, finding requests that fit any search criteria that you might want. So oftentimes for us, it's about, for example, we would get reports that a user tried to do something and something has failed, and we would regularly go in, try to find his request by his ID, UID, or any type of recognition, like for example email or phone number, and we would be able to figure out what path he took, what data he entered, and you know, was there some kind of a problem or not. Or for example, many of our clients who don't actually uh, who are not iOS developers, who are not Android developers, who aren't developers at all, but are maybe CEOs, they would kind of use this feature to keep track of registered users, right? So if we said let's find all requests to auth login, we can see who logged in the past 30 days. So Treblle can be used for many for many different things, right? And that's what we kind of saw. Different roles use it differently. Um, you know, I've seen people who use this as a way to track who is doing their job and who isn't. I have a client who kind of goes goes to Treblle multiple times a day and tries to figure out if his developers are making requests, which means they're kind of working, right? So with this filtering, you could essentially do anything you want and find any request you want, including searching for a specific location, or what we saw was the version ID, right? So the version of the app that was used. So this is very, very powerful and helpful if you're trying to locate a specific set of requests or a single request for debugging purposes, or even trying to understand, how that user, what his behavior was from the time he kind of opened the app to the time that he kind of finished using the app. And so far, we don't have problems, but Treblle is able to track, problems in real time. So let's just try to trigger one. I purposely kind of made a small mistake. I made it so that when I click on this messages API, it will generate a request. Now, please bear in mind, you will see on the left side the request that has an error, but also on the right side, you will see I get a push notification in real time from the Treblle app. We'll get into that later on, but we have an iOS app in development and Android as well, and you will see why that changes the life of everybody who kind of who's doing APIs and uses Treblle. So if I click on this, you will see I'll actually get an error right now. It's gonna say, class app blah 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 not found, and more importantly, here we go. I got a push notification from Treblle. I kind of captured it like so, and we'll get to it later on. But as you can see, in real time, I was notified that there's a problem with this request, and more importantly, everybody who is a member of the project was notified. If they don't have the app, they're notified via email. If they do have the app, they're notified via push notification. So now we see that this is vastly different from all the successful API code, right? So we can see that this is erroring out, which is, really weird. I'm not sure why, right? So now we get exactly the reason why. And if we click into it, you can see that it has no response data because it's not a valid JSON, of course. And we can see what type of an error it was, which file is it on, which line of code is it, and what exactly the error is. And of course, like I told you, it's marked as an error. 500 is just a way of marking errors in the API REST world. It's marked as open. So if I now, for example, go under problems, I can see this error, and I can see the number of occurrences that it has happened. So another thing that Treblle is really smart about is it'll make sure to everybody hates notifications, right? But imagine if your API is failing multiple times in like 1 hour, it fails 50 times, and you don't have time to fix it. We're not gonna send you a notification each time your API fails. I'm not gonna get a push notification now, even though I did the first time. Treblle is really smart and picky about when it sends you notifications. It kind of knows that this problem has already happened. It'll keep count of the problem. It'll say occurrences too. And until you mark it as solved, it won't notify you again. If I marked it as solved and it happened again, uh, by the way, you can see, for example, this is somebody in real time. One of our clients is using a request and he has a problem. If we go see this request, we can see that somebody forgot to authenticate the request. So this is actually an ideal example of what would happen now. I would probably be called in a meeting by my client to try to help this developer who is from Peru, up from what I see, uh, figure out what is wrong, right? And as you can see, he keeps making mistakes, like this. And I can now easily go and try to comment to him, hey, you are making a mistake, right? But let's go back to our demo. So let's actually go fix this error. So I'll open up my code editor. I know exactly where the error is. I literally, so if we go here, conversation resource, I purposely kind of removed this from the imports in PHP. So if I just do this like so, I'll fire up my trusted FTP, wait for that to kind of load, right? If I do this, just bear with me. I upload it here like so. Now, hopefully I fixed it, right? Let me just double check that everything went okay. Just a moment. So let's see what I did. Conversation resource, nice. It should be fixed for all intents and purposes, but it's a live demo, so bear with me. So let's actually not try to make a request from the app. Let's actually use Treblle, right? So I've mentioned that we've got this one-click testing feature that usually, if I wanted to test this, for example, I would have to fire up Postman, right? And I would now need to ask myself, okay, is this a problem with this specific user, or is this, in general on this endpoint? So what I would need to do to make that test is I would need to copy and paste this URL, which is really long. And again, I wouldn't even know this if I don't have Treblle, right? So I would have to figure out what the URL is, right? Like so. I would have to do I would have to go set up authentication. I would have to go grab this key. Again, this is very convenient because Treblle lists it here, but I'd have to probably copy it from code somewhere. I would have to see if I need to set any body parameters. In this case, I don't, so it's a fairly simple request, but if I needed to, I might have to add user and then another UID or whatever, right? It would be a lot of work to kind of test this out. With Treblle, I literally can test this out by clicking one button. If I click this, it says test successful. We were able to make a successful request to your API. And when you click on this, you can see that this is exactly the same request as this. These two are the same, except I did this from Treblle, and it was after I fixed the problem. I wanted to confirm that my problem was fixed. I don't have the app in front of me. I don't want to, do that. All I want to do is I want to confirm that it's working, and I was able to do that with literally one click. Treblle was smart enough to pick up anything that was sent here, including the URL, authentication parameters, and any parameter that you might have here. And again, as you can see, this is the request, and it's a successful request, meaning if we try to do it from the app right now, if I go to messages, there we go. Now I do actually see messages and I can load them up, which is nice. We fixed our problem using Treblle. So now we can mark it as resolved, and that's it. This is closed. So if this now happens again, if this reoccurs, Treblle will now send me a push notification, right? So again, if we go to endpoints, you can see that this one had problems. For example, this endpoint had problems. Again, Treblle was very smart to group all requests under that endpoint. And if we go, for example, into other sections like analytics, you can see, and please bear with us, this is still work in progress, as this section was literally built because our clients have requested this, and we kind of feel like this is something that's going to bring a lot of value. We have access to a lot of data, of course, and since we have access to the data, we wanted to kind of put it in good use. Of course, you won't be able to see a lot of data here because we just started using the API. So what I'm gonna actually do is I'm gonna load up a project that is actually used over 77,000 times, right? And I'm gonna open the analytics section for that app, and you can see that it has a lot of useful data. For example, we can see that the most popular city is Los Angeles. We can see that the country is by far the most popular is United States. We can see that almost all requests are from iOS. That isn't surprising because this is an iOS app. We can see that by far the most popular day is Thursday for some reason, and this is again material for your analytic team to kind of try to detect, for your marketing team to target, and so on and so forth. Again, we do the same for months, and more importantly, and this is really very important for example, providing support, sunsetting APIs. We tell you which version is used the most. So you can see that actually we're on version 5, and everybody is still using version 1. So that might be a problem, right? This would be alarming to me. If I was the owner of the app, of course, I would probably try to have them update to a more modern version of the app. The same goes for scoring. Oftentimes, you would have clients who would ask us, "How do I know that the API is fast, that it's well built, that it doesn't have problems?" We kind of wanted to solve that by providing quality metrics that are measured on every request, right? So everything that you see here is actually measured for each request, right? And we measure across different categories like performance, security, and quality. We measure only the things that are universal to all programming languages. We will be adding things here, and we will be expanding these sections. This is still very early on because we just wanted to see if we can do it. Now that we know we can, we'll try to wrap our brains around some of the things that are most common, that are standards in REST APIs, and we'll try to measure your API to try to tell you how good is it or is it not. And again, if we take a look at a different API, maybe I don't know, this one has 92. Conveniently, it's our API, right? You can see that it's performing very, very well, which isn't surprising, right? And again, you can see that, for example, this app, which is our app, has different data, just so you don't think, interestingly enough, somebody from Netherlands accessing our API. In any case, let's go back to our demo. So again, we can definitely improve this section, and we will, but for now, it's actually very important for us and our clients that they can see this information. They know that, for example, it's not a problem with the API, it's a problem with something that they have or they're using. And again, one of the things that we're still developing is we're kind of developing this testing framework. And this is very, very early on, but basically, like I showed you, Postman is probably the most popular tool for testing. We can do a better job because we know what your APIs look like. We know what you're trying to send, what you're trying to get. So for example, if we wanted to do a request to auth login, we know that you would send usually email and a password. We know that you would do a post request. We know that this is how you would authenticate. So that's why we can kind of do something like this, and it will work, right? So if I do this, blah, 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 I get the response right here. And more importantly, if I click on view full report, I do get it here. So we are going to keep expanding that and keep and actually make it a better interface than what this is. And again, under settings, you can see that, you know, this is my project ID, and I've invited a bunch of members here. I can, of course, send them the invite link, or I can kind of delete them. And again, I think I've showed you on other projects. For example, let's say this one, you can see that we have other members who have actually accepted the invites and are essentially using the system as we speak. So again, that I think bring us to an end as far as this part of the demo goes. I can again show you many more examples of where kind of Treblle is very useful, you know, where we couldn't imagine our life without it, and more importantly, where it has helped us save countless hours of debugging, of searching for things that have maybe happened or not happened, for figuring out who's doing what, when, and so far. So it's really been a game changer, and we're just getting started. And one of those things is, like I told you, the iOS app, which is probably my personal favorite of all of this. If I now open the app, you'll see that it's actually open. You know, I'm logged in. This is my account, and you can see this is our project, the one that we've kind of made right now. And by default, it shows you the new projects, and you can see that it has, you know, 8 endpoints, just like it does here, and 23 requests. If we open it, we can actually see all of these requests that we've made, including, and this is, I cannot stress how this is important for me as an API developer, to be able to see this on my phone while, for example, I'm having lunch. I can determine whether or not this error that has happened is worthy of me, you know, standing up from lunch and going to home to fix this. Of course, again, I can view all the details right here, like so, or even a successful request, again, like so, and you can see all the details that you usually can. You can, of course, share the request. You can comment on the request, just like I commented before. So I'm just gonna do another inception. I'm gonna, for example, say, hey, I'm gonna mention myself. So this is what it's called, inception testing. And as you can see, I'll get a push notification. You know, when I open the app, it's gonna be waiting for me under alerts. I can see it. It takes me right there. I can, you know, actually mention myself again. I can answer myself, and I can have communication with my team back and forth. I can see all the alerts. I can filter them by problems, mentions, or invites. I don't have any, but I do have a bunch of mentions. You can see me talking to other members, and again, it's very easy to kind of see any part of the system, including this very nice view of the quality score, which I think all of our clients that we've shown have, you know, have kind of fell in love with that. You can see all your problems. You can see all your endpoints. You have absolute control from your mobile phone from anywhere in the world to be able to track your APIs, you know, help others figure out what is going on or what is not going on. And all of this is done, again, I have to mention, in real time, without any effect to your API, without any massive, you know, privacy invasion. We're not stealing anybody's code. We're not stealing anybody's data. We're actually computing a lot of this information ourselves, and we're using what you have done as a developer in your API to try to figure out how we can help you and what you're trying to do, and, you know, we'll kind of be in every step of your way, from testing, development, to production, post-production, analyzing, monitoring. Treblle can be used and will help you literally in all of those stages. Again, we've got a lot more ideas to to implement. We've got I haven't shown you everything, of course. Feel free to play around with it, but from a general standpoint, we use Treblle daily. Every developer that we've invited has used Treblle daily since they've started. I literally could not imagine a life without it because it just gives me so much insight that I never had before in 10 years of development. I literally didn't have this in front of me, and like I said, it starts with one simple idea: seeing what is going on, and that leads you to other areas like computing the data, understanding what's going on, providing documentation, providing analytics, providing quality score. So thank you for kind of you know staying with me for, I think it's been like over an hour or whatever. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I will try to answer them. And again, this has been more of a conversation between me and anybody who's going to be watching this. So please, bear with me, and I apologize if I made any mistakes, or I rushed, but I tried to cover as much as I can in as little time as I could. So thank you for watching, and I hope you become a future user of Treblle.